Welcome to One Brothas Mind, and I am KD Smooth. Today we will question and challenge popular information and views from a B1 perspective, while we expose the real facts you need. We do this to strengthen your logical, critical, and discerning thinking skills. Because in today's world, hard choices are mandatory and they come with consequences. So you need all the information. And at One Brothas Mind, we do this from a B1 Yeshua the Christ followers perspective. Now, if you're not ready, you better get ready with Katie Smooth at One Brothas Mind. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's Katie Smooth coming back at you with a new report. I pray you all are doing well. Shalom, family. In today's report, family, we are going to actually start a new series here at One Brothas Mind. And that series is this: Systematic White Supremacy. We are going to share with you, with all of our listeners, examples of systematic white supremacy. Okay? And for those of us in the so-called black community, to help many of us understand that we are being hunted. And the question is, what are you going to do about it? Okay? New series here at One Brothas Mind, Systematic White Supremacy. And one of the additional purposes of this series is many times I've had conversations with some of my white brothers and sisters, and they swear for up and down they do not understand what systematic white supremacy is. They try to at least pretend to take all accusations and information that we provide to them personally or as personal attacks. And it's not personal attacks when someone, so-called black person, is having a conversation with you and they give the description of systematic white supremacy. That means there's a system that basically many of our white brothers and sisters, those that have been in authority and those that are in authority, so let's say here in the U.S., there's systems, laws, checks and balances, unspoken, under the table agreements, you name it, politics, trickeration words, dog whistles, you name it, that all have a purpose of harming so-called black people in various different ways. And it's just that these systems, most of them, have been put in place since the origin of this country. Okay? And there's just been more and more of these systems, this red tape, these things added every year since. Okay? But again, we're going to share with you and expose some examples in this new series here at One Brothas Mind of what systematic white supremacy is and what it looks like, as well as to hopefully help wake up more of our so-called black brothers and sisters to this issue, because there's direct, or in the case of systematic white supremacy, indirect racism and discrimination. And systematic white supremacy is far, far more difficult to expose to fight and defeat, because there's multiple aspects, even parts that you're not aware of, that are working against you. So it's really difficult to actually contend with systematic white supremacy, because you may identify this part of it here or this aspect of it over there, and you go to try to legally attack those, but there's so many working parts of systematic white supremacy that are working against you. It's really difficult to do any significant damage to it. You may think you got a victory here or there, but in reality, systematic white supremacy just keeps on rolling. Okay, so today we're going to share a video report with you regarding a recent news story that's been happening in Chicago public schools, where many so-called black school principals in the public school system have been, for various different reasons, they've been getting terminated. And there's some trickery going on here. There's some systematic white supremacy happening. But I'm going to let this representative, I believe this is an attorney, I want to call his name, but let's see, the principals here that were involved, there were 6 that were removed last year, and with that, there's an investigator, Kelly. Well, no, matter of fact, scratch that. 6 were removed. This report is going to explain it all and show you what systematic white supremacy looks like and how it operates. Okay? So this is approximately 15 minutes long, because I want you to get all the information, because this brother breaking this down as to what has been happening, nobody could do a better job than what he's done. So I'm going to just share what he's laid out, and then we'll come back briefly after that. Okay. Here we go. And again, if we get any of those colonizer invader commercials, we will eliminate those immediately and then return to our report. Here we go.
The Chicago Public Schools Law Department targeted at least 6 principals for removal last year, and all 6 were black. One of the 3 best examples of the law department's malfeasance in conducting these investigations is the case investigator Kelly Tarrant concocted against Principal Abdul Muhammad. When Muhammad was removed from his position as the rightful principal of Lindblom Math and Science Academy, he was not given any due process. They didn't even tell him what he was charged with. It wasn't until we made clear our intent to file a lawsuit that the law department released the charges and the investigative report to Muhammad. Once we got the report, we realized why they didn't want to release it. Not only are the charges in the report provably false, they are petty. And the law department knew they were petty. And we believe this because, number 1, they tried to prevent the report from being released. And number 2, when we forced them to release it, listen to me. We forced them with a letter sent on April 14th. 3 days later, on April 17th, they got the inspector general to open up yet another investigation against Muhammad, months after he'd been removed. Like the claims in the first investigation, the claim in the new investigation is provably false. Unlike the first investigation, however, the new claim was failure to report sexual misconduct. So it is not petty. So I want to focus my comments on the connection between the false claims and the petty accusations in the original investigative report and the false claim and serious accusations at the heart of the new investigation. Please listen closely. CPS's own Aspen report shows that a young female student was sexually harassed on 3 different occasions by an adult male security guard. This is in your report. And she reported this harassment to at least 4 different Lindblom staff members. And 3 of the 4 staff members failed to call DCFS, failed to call the OIG, failed to inform the principal, and failed to complete an Aspen report. It's important to note that all of these failures typically lead to the person being fired. It is also important to note that none of these 4 staff members was Abdul Muhammad. In fact, the Aspen report shows that the only time DCFS was called was when the 4th staff member informed Mr. Muhammad, who then directed that staff member to complete the Aspen report and call DCFS. Kelly Tarrant had to have read the Aspen report because it's the only thing documenting the harassment that she's saying Muhammad failed to report. Therefore, she had to have known the danger these staff members put that student in by failing to report the sexual misconduct the student alleged. Tarrant had to have known that the very report she was reading would not have existed if Abdul Muhammad had not instructed that 4th staff member to call DCFS and complete the report. Yet somehow, Tarrant, under the supervision of Libby Massey and Ruchi Verma, forwarded Muhammad's name to the OIG to be investigated for failure to report, while giving at least 3 staff members who put that child in danger a pass, which allowed them to remain at Lindblom and fail that child again, and fail other children again, and again, and again. This is your law department. If the documented evidence shows that Muhammad was the only one who acted decisively to keep this student safe, then how did Kelly Tarrant, Libby Massey, and Ruchi Verma justify recommending the OIG investigate Abdul Muhammad? Well, Tarrant used the word of Lindblom clerk LaConda McDaniel, who with no evidence whatsoever told Tarrant that Muhammad didn't report the accusation because the student wanted to be anonymous. Tarrant then elevated the word of this clerk over the documented Aspen report that clearly shows Muhammad did exactly what McDaniel said he didn't. Right now, I'm going to pause this part, please focus, and talk about other places in Kelly Tarrant's original investigative report, the one with the petty accusations, that contain obviously false claims from LaConda McDaniel that Tarrant took as fact, so that we can see Tarrant's pattern of using McDaniel to fabricate outlandish claims against Muhammad. Kelly Tarrant concluded in her investigative report that Muhammad completed a form for a vendor that he wasn't supposed to complete. 1, petty, but let's go on. When Muhammad told investigators to check with the Office of Procurement so that they would know that procurement policy says that principals must complete this form, Kelly Tarrant decided that the clerk, LaConda McDaniel, was a higher authority than the Office of Procurement. So she fact-checked Muhammad by checking back with the clerk, LaConda McDaniel. It's right there in her own investigative report. And McDaniel told Tarrant that she, the clerk, was supposed to complete the form in clear violation of procurement policy. But Tarrant privileged McDaniel's words over district policy. In another example, Tarrant's report says that Muhammad made odd or strange purchases for a pep rally. Listen to this. These so-called strange purchases included balloons and a DJ for a pep rally. And who is the authority that Kelly Tarrant relied on to fact check whether or not balloons and a DJ were odd purchases for a pep rally? Anybody care to guess? The school clerk, LaConda McDaniel. Another claim fabricated by LaConda McDaniel from the pep rally was that one of the entertainers Muhammad invited told students to follow her on Cash App. Once again, petty, as if he can control what this person is saying. But let's go on. Standing in contradiction to McDaniel is the evidence. 1, the pep rally was videotaped, and at no point in the tape did anyone say this. 2, multiple witnesses verified it but the law department wouldn't interview them, including the person they claim said it, the vendor. And 3, anyone who makes the slightest effort to investigate that claim knows that you cannot follow someone on Cash App. It's not a social media app. Despite the fact that the evidence contradicts McDaniel, and McDaniel herself provided no evidence to support her claim, Tarrant once again went with McDaniel's word against Muhammad over the evidence supporting Muhammad. Her word over evidence, again and again and again. Many of you are aware that one of Tarrant's star witnesses against Abdul Muhammad is Christina Davis, who admitted in an email that she put school fundraising money in her personal bank account and had no intention of returning it. What may have escaped you is that Christina Davis could not have stolen that money without the school clerk, LaConda McDaniel, turning a blind eye when Davis failed to turn in fundraising reports. Follow me. As many of you also know, there's a documented record that Mr. Muhammad discovered this theft and put in systems and structures to stop it, thereby giving LaConda McDaniel a motive to lie to investigators about Muhammad. This is the record of LaConda McDaniel. Of the more than 80 verifiably false statements in Tarrant's report, McDaniel told the most lies. Since McDaniel had proven herself to be so reliable in saying whatever Tarrant needed her to say to back up the petty charges, Tarrant turned to her again when she needed someone to contradict the written record on the serious charge. The record shows that Muhammad was the only person who followed the district's sexual misconduct reporting requirements, but Tarrant needed someone to say he didn't. Again, record shows he did. Tarrant needed a word that he didn't. Not evidence, just a word. And in an unbelievable twist, it was particularly monstrous of Tarrant to use LaConda McDaniel's accusation against Principal Muhammad because the Aspen report clearly shows that one of the 3 people the student went to with the sexual misconduct allegation was, guess who? LaConda McDaniel. It's right there in the report. They didn't even interview the student. Yet LaConda McDaniel did not call DCFS, did not call the OIG, did not complete an Aspen report, and did not inform the principal. This is the person that Kelly Tarrant used to fabricate a claim that Muhammad failed to report. You can't make this up. Lindblom teacher Danielle Atta is also one of the 4 staff members listed in the Aspen report as having been told directly by the student of the sexual harassment. Yet Atta too failed to call DCFS, failed to call the OIG, failed to complete an Aspen report, and failed to inform the principal. Danielle Atta, the one who failed to report, is also one of the 7 white teachers that Kelly Tarrant relied on to make multiple verifiably false claims against Principal Muhammad. It is right there in the report. Again, you just cannot make this up. It's as if Tarrant was mocking Mr. Muhammad, mocking the very concepts of justice and student safety, and mocking you. If you do not act, Daniel Atta and LaConda McDaniel, who fabricated claims and endangered a victim of sexual misconduct, will be at Lindblom this fall to endanger those students again. And Abdul Muhammad, the man who insisted those staff members follow student safety protocols, will not be there to protect them.
That's right.
Abdul Muhammad, of course, is not the only victim of Kelly Tarrant and her supervisors, Libby Massey and Ruchi Verma. Dr. Kimberly Gibson and Principal Gerald Murrow were also victimized. Gerald Murrow was removed in December, and nearly 8 months later, Tarrant still hasn't told him what he's charged with beyond some vague mismanagement allegation. That's it, 8 months, and that's all he's gotten. Brittany Griner got more due process from Russia under Vladimir Putin than Gerald Murrow got from CPS under Pedro Martinez. And that's not hyperbole. You can measure that. What is due process? Well, you know what you're charged with. Do we know what Brittany Griner was charged with? Yes, we do. Drug possession, marijuana, right? She knows. Do we know what Gerald Murrow's charged with? Gerald Murrow doesn't even know what Gerald Murrow is charged with. Based on what we've seen with Muhammad and Gibson, in all likelihood, she hasn't released the report because the accusations are provably false, petty, and she's still looking for something to pin on him. Last page. In response to our accusations of discrimination, CPS released a statement saying that over 40% of principals are Black. They forgot to mention that CPS management doesn't select most principals. Local school councils are the ones that selected most of those Black principals, and then management and the law department come in to fire those Black principals selected by those local school councils. And when the LSCs resist, hold up, they opened up investigations against the Black LSC members. As a matter of fact, the Dunbar Local School Council was so supportive of Gerald Murrow that Tarrant opened up investigations against them for financial claims that are supposed to be handled by the OIG. In addition to her investigation of the Dunbar Local School Council, guess who else Tarrant is investigating? Lynn White, the Black Lynn Bloom LSC member, who is the most vocal supporter of Abdul Muhammad. You cannot make this up. But Kelly Tarrant has thus far been able to make up anything she wants and get away with it. Tarrant, of course, is not acting alone. Staff from the Office of Network Supports and the Office of LSC Relations were also directly involved in front of witnesses in sabotaging Muhammad while he was applying for the job at Lindblom, which means someone used law, someone used network supports, someone used LSC Relations in a coordinated attack on Muhammad. There's also evidence of coordinated attacks at Dunbar and Tubman. The only person who has the authority to direct all three of those departments is the CEO, Pedro Martinez. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to investigate. Specifically, I'm asking you to contract an independent firm to investigate the departments and the systems that disproportionately targeted and persecuted Black principals, and suspend all board employees implicated pending the results of this investigation. And those suspensions should include the CEO, Pedro Martinez.
That's right.
If something like this happened under a principal's watch, you all wouldn't let them sit in that office another day. Lastly, I'm asking you to return Abdul Muhammad, Gerald Murrow, Kimberly Gibson, and all principals who were discriminated against and persecuted by CPS officials to their rightful positions, and issue a public apology to the principals and their school communities. Apologize to the children for what you did to their schools when you took out their leaders. Lastly, I'm asking you to join with us to be an ally in calling for investigations and actions from the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, the state legislature, and the Illinois Human Rights Commission, and the Illinois State Board of Education. Now that something occurred to me on the way here after we wrote this statement. Take another 60 seconds. There's a commonality between
family. Pay very close attention to this last part. You should already have seen and understood the systematic white supremacy within the Chicago public school system that's at play here. This gentleman laid it out for you, piece by piece, step by step. But the rabbit hole goes far deeper than what you've heard this far. Pay very close attention to this part.
These Black principals who were targeted, it struck me. One of them is a Black principal over a majority white school. The other is a Black principal over a majority Latino school. All of the other four lead schools in gentrifying communities. They didn't touch the deep South Side. They didn't touch the Southwest Side. All of them are leading schools in gentrifying communities. So this goes way beyond Kelly Tarrant and the law department. They are just tools, right? When you see an orchestra playing together, there must be a conductor. right? And these different departments are all playing together to target black principals to destroy black communities. That's right. That's right. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to investigate. Are there any questions?
As I said, systematic white supremacy. That last part is one of the biggest keys. He identified of all 6 principals that were terminated, removed from their positions, they were all black. One was principal over a majority white school, one over majority Latino school, and the rest, the other 4, over predominantly black schools. But all 6 were principals over the public schools in communities or areas in Chicago that were currently experiencing gentrification. For those that don't know, gentrification is when you have an impoverished, economically starved black community or predominantly black community, and the property values in that community have been driven down so low because of the economic starvation that now the city, in conjunction with many of our white brothers and sisters, will have made plans, so-called for development. And once the city officials make so-called development plans, magically a bunch of our white brothers and sisters swoop into those areas where the property values have been driven down to dirt cheap, and they start buying up those dirt cheap properties for $5, $10, $15, $20,000 a pop. Why would it literally makes no sense for well-to-do white brothers and sisters to buy torn down, run down, cheap properties in predominantly black communities unless they know something, unless the fix is in. And that fix is, and what they know is the city and other people that they know, which is usually city officials that are also white, have made plans to bring so-called development to those communities. So as a regular home buyer, if our white brothers and sisters go in before the big development starts or begins and starts buying up those dilapidated properties for dirt cheap, within the next 2 to 5 years, the city officials is going to come right behind them and start all of a sudden magically doing development in that area. And they're going to do it under the disguise of investing in the black community. It's not invested in the black communities. It's an entire gentrification scam and plan to actually run the so-called black people out of those neighborhoods and communities, while at the same time, many of our white brothers and sisters go into those exact same communities, purchase those dilapidated homes, torn down, worn down properties, invest in them, maybe $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 into those properties to revitalize them. And then within the next 2 to 5 years, in addition to the city's development that's coming in, all of a sudden, magically, that house they purchased for $10,000 from previous so-called black owners who were being economically starved, that $10,000 property is now worth $100,000 or $150,000 or $200,000 just within a couple of years. Why? Because the city decided to invest in the development of that area just magically all of a sudden. These areas, many of our so-called black communities go without investment, development, revitalization from the city. The streets aren't fixed, the potholes ain't fixed for decades. Right? And then magically the city comes up with a plan. Well, we're going to revitalize this area. And at pretty much the exact same time, or actually before, they actually stick a shovel in the dirt in those areas. Many of our white brothers and sisters somehow know, man, it's a good idea to go buy that $10,000 house in these communities. All these $10,000, $15,000 houses, we need to start buying those. And a whole gang of y'all come start buying all these properties up for dirt cheap. Yes, y'all do invest another $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 into these homes, into these properties or more, and make them or return them back to their original beauty and glory. And y'all live in them. Great, fine. Then all of a sudden, there's new office complex, new medical center, new employers popping up all over this little area, new businesses, because the city is now invested. The city, I'm getting ahead of myself, is now investing in that community where they refused to for decades when it was predominantly black owned. That investment brings in more of our wonderful white brothers and sisters that want to open up businesses, little restaurants and shops and everything. All of a sudden, within about 5 to 10 years, you can have one predominantly so-called black, economically starved area in a city be completely overhauled, and now that same area is now predominantly white. All the streets are paved, brand new, all new businesses everywhere, and the schools in that area where 10 years ago they were rated as underperforming and poor are actually closed down, magically all of a sudden are getting all the tax investment and educational investment they need to prosper. And that's what this brother is explaining here. These same 6 principles were in areas that were being currently gentrified. So a part of the motivation to terminate these principles, who thus far have not been proven to do anything worth termination, it was to get rid of them so the new residents that were moving in, let's say, many of our white brothers and sisters that were now moving in with children, they could institute whoever they wanted to be principals of this school. But before they can do that, they got to get rid of the 6 black principals in these areas first. It's a common tactic. Also, in these same 6 areas, you can do an investigation in Chicago. There's a few black-owned businesses, because this has been a majority black-owned neighborhoods for 4 of them, at least. If you did an investigation in those 4 neighborhoods, I guarantee you, every year for the last 3 or 4 years and going forward, the numbers of black-owned businesses in those neighborhoods are being reduced. All kind of extra efforts and ordinances and violation tickets and whatnot are being written and impressed on black business owners in the gentrification areas, It's done to get rid of them. It sends a message. It's consistent. It's overwhelming to the point to where those black business owners be like, I can't afford to stay here. They're going to keep making up stuff against me that costs me money. I can't survive as a business here. I have to close or move to a different location. That's how they clear any area, no matter what major city you're from. If it has been revitalized and it's predominantly white, where it used to be a predominantly black neighborhood, these are some of the white supremacist tactics, the systematic white supremacist tactics that occur with the schools, with the businesses, with the properties. They also use the police force. All of a sudden, a predominantly black area gets heavy police patrols and police enforcement because they're trying to get rid of everybody that was so-called black. And they're sending a message. Either you leave on your own, or we're going to find something and arrest you for it and charge you with it. But either way, you're leaving. This happens in every city across America. Systematic white supremacy. So for those that are my white listeners, can you now see why systematic white supremacy is so hard to fight, to root out, to stop, to defeat? Because it's so many moving parts, and you got to be able to lay down, like this brother did, the crumbs and attach the links. These 6 principles being fired, the link was, he said it just dawned on him, all these areas are being currently gentrified. They're moving in. So that this is how, for my white brothers and sisters, this is how y'all move in. Y'all come in and take over everything by force. Do you see that? So, just as in this case, in this situation, in Chicago, it is our recommendation here at One Brothas Mind. First, smash the like button, Share this report on all your social media with all your peoples, and be sure to be subscribed to One Brothas Mind, where we try to bring you the information and facts you need. In addition, it is our recommendation here at One Brothas Mind, one of the primary tools we have to fight systematic white supremacy in all its forms is for us to record and document everything as so-called black people in America. Everywhere you go, while you're at work, always be recording. Especially every conversation, every meeting, every discussion you have, unfortunately, with all of our white brothers and sisters. Because for us, the reason why we have to record or need to be recording all our conversations and meetings and interactions is because we don't know which one of y'all is going to try to pull it. Which one of y'all is going to come at us in a discriminatory or racist way or manner, or we don't know. Is it 100% of our white brothers and sisters? Absolutely not. But the ones that are doing all this stuff, they don't wear a sign on their forehead. So we have no way really to identify them or see them coming. So that's why for us, we need to be recording at all times. recording and documenting everything from everyone. Okay? And all of us, we got our phones with it. Just open your phone up. Act like you finishing up a text or something. And, fold it up, stand it up close to you so, whoever you're talking to cannot see that instead of finishing up a text or email, you're actually turning on your video recorder and pressing record. And then just set your phone down on the table in your desk or whatever near and go on and have your conversation. Laugh it up, chuckle it up. If it's from one of our white brothers and sisters that are not up to nothing nefarious, everything's cool. When that conversation is over, delete that conversation, that recording. Just delete it. No biggie. Or at least if it is from one that's nefarious, but nothing is done or said during that particular conversation that is of any consequence, delete that conversation. And just repeat this process until you actually capture and record and document it when it really does happen. Okay? I even got here on your screen to the top right, they got, if you ain't got your phone or ain't got enough room on your phone, they got recorder pins. Literally, Walmart. So they sell Walmart, Amazon. Everybody got them. This one's like $100 and some. They got cheaper ones. This pen records 19 hours of audio consecutively. You press record, come back 18 hours later, it's still gonna be recorded, and that it'll all be one file, and you can transfer that file when you need to. So, if you're worried about family, you trying to use your phone and all that. Because sometimes that can be kind of, obvious. Just have your pen. Just have your pen in your little pocket of your shirt or clipped onto your purse strings and grab it off and clicking the thing, just click the button at the top of the pen or wherever the little button is on it, and it's recording. And you just got a pen in your hand. Now, to many of my white brothers and sisters, some of y'all mad right now. I'll be recording everybody. Okay, first off, let's deal with the recording laws. Before you begin this recording, family, check your state's recording laws. Make yourself fully aware of what they are. Some states only require one party to know, and that's you. Other states require both parties to be informed that a recording is happening, right? Either way, do your recording. I don't care what state you're in. Okay? If you're in a state with the both party requirement, the recorder pins or some other small device like that that's more inconspicuous may be the route to go. Okay? But record anyway. Because in those states, that's one of the reasons why they have those laws, that it requires both parties. Now, remember, you're at work. They're recording you the whole time while you're sitting in your desk at work or while you're working. They're recording you. You're under surveillance the whole time. And you agreed to being under surveillance at your workplace when you signed up to accept the job. That was written into your agreement. Okay, so they're recording you and they're using manipulative tactics to get it. So like basically you agree to be recorded or you can't work here. That's basically what they're saying. Okay? So skip all that. At the very least, get your recorder pen and have it with you every day. And anytime you see them come up to you or a conversation start, reach up, grab your pen, click it in your pocket, and let it record. If it doesn't record anything of any issue, delete that recording. Delete that file. But if and when it does, you have it recorded. I don't know how many of us so-called black people, from especially black ladies, how many conversations, I've had hundreds of conversations with black, so-called black women here in America that I know. And they've experienced some of the most outrageous racism and verbal attacks on their jobs. And the first thing that I ask them is, okay, what you gonna do with that recording? And they go, what recording? I'm like, why didn't you didn't record this? I didn't have nothing to record it with. I said, you got your phone at the very least. I didn't think about that. What? And I get it. You kind of go into shock for some people when this stuff happens, and you don't think really quickly. But if you're expecting it, you're already ready. And then I tell them, I said, go ahead and get you what you need with a phone or recorder pen or something, and start recording from this point forward. Now that person has identified themselves with what they've said or done, and they've gotten away with it. So their arrogance, they're emboldened. They're going to come with some more soon. Be ready to record it. And record it. And now you have your evidence in regards to your discrimination, racism, and harassment and hostile work environment. Now you are in the driver's seat, and you can go get you an attorney and file what you need to file, report it to your HR department, but don't give them your recording. Just report it and wait to see what the HR department does. Do not give them your recording. When the HR department comes out and they don't do nothing, they just blow your report off. Say, okay, now then go get you an attorney, and you got your recording, and file your lawsuit. Let them find out about your recording in court. That's how you do that. You don't reveal your whole poker hand when you're playing poker. You drop that ace, that flush, that straight, whatever it is, at the last minute. Bow! Here you go. Chew on this. Now you got your proof, and they can't deny it. It also helps show a lot of times that the HR department is working with the individuals that have been discriminatory or racist or verbally abusive or aggressive toward you in whatever way. Okay? Again, family, it's a new series here at One Brothas Mind. We are going to have where we're going to highlight examples of systematic white supremacy. So for those that still are not clear about what it is and how it operates and maintains control here in the United States, we're going to provide many of those examples. Okay? So y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments, in the chat. Let's chop it up. And hey, if you disagree, explain yourself, but be respectful, because One Brothas Mind don't play that. Okay? All right. And this concludes this broadcast for One Brothas Mind. We thank you for joining us. And as a part of the new Black media, B1 choices are mandatory, and being on code is required. But never fear, Yeshua the Christ is with you always. Shalom.